Hello everyone and welcome to the video, and today we're going to be talking about the rankings of all of the legends in Apex Legends. So I made a little tier list that ranks every single one from D being the worst to S being the best. We're just going to get right into the list, and starting off at the lowest spot we have Bloodhound. I put Bloodhound in the D tier. I still think, if you guys watched my last tier list, I had him here as well. I still think he's pretty bad. I don't think he has really many uses in ranked play. I know he keeps getting buffed, but they're really minor, and his abilities are still pretty underwhelming, in my opinion. I don't think his ult brings that much value, especially in Season 3, where safe rotations are just about the most important thing that a legend can have. Because of the charge rifle single-handedly shifts the meta. If you can't rotate safely, then you're pretty much dead. So you'll see a couple legends that you think are pretty good get ranked low just because they don't have the ability to rotate like other legends. So on to the next legend, we have Mirage. I put Mirage pretty low as well. This didn't change from my last video either. He's also terrible. His skills, just not very good. His ult is decent. You could use it aggressively and it's not bad. But overall, that's the only thing that he has. And whereas it does help him with a safe rotation, you have to ult just to do it. His L1 is pretty ineffective in higher ranked games as well. And his hitbox is pretty big, making him a pretty big target. That's why I'm putting Mirage in the D tier. I think he's a little bit better than Bloodhound just because of his ult, but that's just about it. For the most part, these two legends are never ever played in high ranked games, so they are at the bottom of the list. Next up, we have Caustic. I put Caustic in the C tier. He dropped a lot since last season. This has a lot to do with the charge rifle, the fact that rotating is very important, and it's hard to rotate when you have a giant hitbox and no means of protecting yourself. If you're Caustic in open area, you're pretty much dead in the water. There's nothing you could really do. So his rank has plummeted since Season 2, and this is not entirely due to just the charge rifle. The map itself limits Caustic greatly just because it's mostly open areas and there's nowhere where you can really fortify, which is his strongest part of his abilities. And this is seen a lot mid to late game when the circle starts getting smaller and the use of buildings and houses is not as utilized as it was in Season 2. During Season 2, there was a pretty high probability that the circle would end on a house, whereas in this season, it's not always guaranteed. Caustic is just not a good pick anymore, and he should be avoided in ranked games because he doesn't bring much value to his team, and he is not as much of a viable pick as he was in Season 2. So next on the list, we have Octane. I'm not sure if Octane moved up at all, but Octane is still below average. In terms of ranked, he does have decent mobility, but his L1 just makes him move slightly faster. That doesn't really change much. He just gets a little bit better movement. His ult is actually decent, but with the charge rifle, you could easily laser an Octane right out of the air. It wouldn't be difficult. I have seen a little bit of Octane play in high ranked games. So I do think he is a little bit better in this meta than he was last season. But overall, I don't think he's a great legend. I don't think he's a go-to pick. He probably should be avoided if at all possible. And that's why he is in C tier. So next up, we have Watson. I put Watson in the B tier. Personally, I'd like to put her lower, but some people use her. She's rarely played anymore in high-ranked games. She, like Caustic, can fortify houses, but it's not really useful in this meta, especially with the charge rifle. Like, her fences are just useless. This also has to do with the fact that a lot of the times teams are just going full snipers and just picking people off, and if they get you low, they're just going to push you. No Watson fences are going to really stop that. So personally, I think the only value Watson brings is her ult, which is still pretty good, but for the most part, I don't like Watson this season. Next up, we have Crypto. Crypto is also in the B tier. Crypto would be much higher on the list if safe rotations weren't so important this season. I think his skills and abilities are really, really good. I like his drone. I think it's awesome. The fact that you can recover banners is a really amazing trait that he has. It's possibly one of the better abilities in the game. His ult is pretty good, but in high-ranked games, people just drop their armor. Not even just high-ranked games, just ranked games in general. I feel like most people will just drop their armor, and his ult is kind of useless. It does cause people to stop what they're doing for a second, which if you can capitalize on it, that's good for you, but most of the time it will not be capitalized on. So his ult is not very good, but the drone is. Being able to spot people in a fight is awesome. It can get shot out of the sky. It's pretty easy to shoot it out, but a lot of times mid-fight people aren't always thinking of it, or it's sometimes forgotten. Overall, though, I think Crypto is good. He loses a lot of value because he can't rotate. Like I said, it's one of the most important things this season. So the fact that he has nothing in his kit that allows him to do so, he really, really suffers from that. So the next on the list, we have Lifeline. I'm also putting Lifeline in the B tier. I would put her higher, but like Crypto, she really suffers from the fact that she has no rotations. She is still used, and that is heavily relying upon her passive, which is probably the best passive in the game. She gets fast heal, which is incredibly important, especially in high tier ranked games when those seconds matter. She also gets the revive shield, which is pretty good. I've seen some players use it effectively, and this season now more than ever, since this season really relies on snipers and the charge rifle. If one of your teammates gets knocked, usually a team will push, but if you have a Lifeline, she's usually able to get the res before they can push. So next up on the list, we have Gibraltar. Now this may be a little bit shocking for some of you because I feel like Gibraltar has had this stigma as being the worst legend in the game for so long, but that is not the case this season. He is actually a very good pick. The 15% damage reduction and his arm shield makes it so he is basically impossible to get one-clipped. You could rush very effectively with Gibraltar. You could also suppress people with his ult, and the use of his dome gives very good rotations, as well as when you combo his dome and the ult, you can easily res anybody and no one can push you. So I think Gibraltar really is a top pick this season. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that he can't get one-clipped. That might not seem like such a big deal, but in high tier ranked games, basically the person who gets one-clipped first dies. If you don't hit all your shots on the enemy, they're probably going to hit all their shots on you. And ever since the R9 ammo capacity got nerfed, the only way you're one-clipping a Gibraltar is if you hit a majority of your shots in his head, and that's just really not likely. Actually, one-clipping a Gibraltar this season is pretty difficult, especially when they get up in your face. It could be pretty hard to face a good Gibraltar, especially when they're using him effectively. That's why Gibraltar is definitely a high-tier legend in this season, and I don't think he's laughable anymore. I think he's a really, really good pick. Next on this list, we have Pathfinder. This may shock you because I put him in A tier. He is not in S tier anymore. I don't think he really got much worse. I think just the shift of the meta and the charge rifle sniper meta makes him not as good. I think the fact that charge rifles are hit scan, it makes him possible to hit out of the air when he's grappling, whereas last season it was very difficult to land a shot on a grappling Pathfinder with a longbow. His zipline also got nerfed. This was a little while ago, but you're no longer able to jump up and down and move quickly on it. You slow down greatly, which is not that big of a deal, but it deters people from doing that. And I think that without that, he just kind of gets lasered off zip lines. So Pathfinder definitely not as good as he was in Season 2. I think overall he still is a top pick, and if you're a Pathfinder main, I would continue to use him just because I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. I feel as though there's nothing that could really stop him from being at the top of these lists. They already nerfed him a little bit, and he's still right at the top, so definitely one of the best legends in the game due to his amazing mobility and the fact that he can be played extremely aggressively. I think it pairs really well in this meta, and that's why I put Pathfinder in the A tier. So next up on the list, we have Bangalore. Now she has actually moved up quite a bit since my last tier list. She got buffed, and I put her in the S tier. She got buffed with her ultimate. It does double the damage, which is kind of crazy. If you get caught in a Bangalore ult now, you might just be done. That's all there is to it. You just take probably around 80 damage every single time if you get caught in it, which is kind of insane, especially in a fight. That's your entire shield. Also, since the meta shifted with the charge rifle, the fact that rotations are basically the most important thing, her smokes are now better. And this is due to the fact that she can successfully rotate her entire team safely with 2 smokes. That is extremely important, especially when you're trying to get from point A to point B and get better positioning. It's really insane how much it can assist your team, and really it affects how much value Bangalore brings to a team as well. At this point in the meta, I do believe that Bangalore is an auto pick. I think for the most part, your team should consist of Bangalore and Wraith, and then somebody else, whether it be Gibraltar or Pathfinder. But I think at this point, Bangalore is a necessity. I think she's too good to not pick, and she brings too much value to the team as a whole to not be considered. And next up, obviously, we have Wraith. Now, you probably saw this coming. Wraith has been at the top of my last tier list as well. Nothing changed. Her abilities are extremely good, especially in this meta. Like I've said a million times, safe rotations are the most important. Her portal allows her to safely rotate the entire team, which is insane. Not only does it do that, but you can use it to go back into the storm to retrieve anything, or even in late games, if it may come to a heal off, you can use it to win the heal off. Her portal is probably her best ability. It's probably the best ultimate in the entire game. Also, her L1, it's another way of her to rotate safely. So she has 2 ways of rotating, which is just better than any other legend in the game. That's why I put Wraith at the top of the list. She's the best legend and should be on every single team comp in a ranked game. So that does it for the tier list. Comment below your opinions, and if you think I may have messed up, feel free to express that. Also, if you'd like to see a weapons tier list, I could make that. And with all that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.